What's up, fuggers? Today we got some new cards revealed by the Play Hearthstone Twitter. The first batch was some neutral cards, then they revealed some hunter cards, and they just revealed some priest cards a little bit ago. Now, these cards are all really interesting, and I'm really excited to talk with you about them, but first, if you want to be a fugger, subscribe to my channel down below, and while you're down there, leave a like and maybe drop a comment, and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all my new content as it releases. It's completely painless and free to do so, and it really helps me a lot, so I really appreciate any support you give me. Thank you. Alright guys, we have a lot to go over today, so let's just get right into it. The first card up here is Mistake. It's the new Amalgam card. It's a 1-mana 1/3. Now, this card's pretty simple, so there's not a whole lot to say about this card, but it is very good at what it does. Because it has tribal synergy with any given tribe, you can fit it into a whole host of decks, no problem. And tons of decks are going to be wanting this. Even though it has no effect, it's still just a really powerful early drop, and it's going to get your game plan going that much faster. Notably, I believe Pirates actually have a severe lack of 1-drops in Standard right now, so this should really help the questline deck for Warrior. Next up on our list is a new Undead card. It's a Darkfallen Shadow. It has Rush and Mana Thirst 6, gain Reborn. Now, I don't know how many of you remember the card Restless Mummy from Saviors of Uldum. That card was pretty nuts in Control Warrior. This card is 1 mana cheaper, and it has 1 more health on the first half. Now, there is the fact that it has Mana Thirst 6, so it can't come out until the mid-game. But a lot of the time you were playing Restless Mummy as a reactive card anyway, and that would come out in the mid-game. It was occasionally important to take off your opponent's board in the early game with it, but usually you had other cards for that, so you could make do. This card seems like it will be good in control decks. Maybe not quite as good as Restless Mummy, but it is also a neutral, so any class can take advantage of it, so that is something to consider. Another thing to think about here is that in Death Knight, this gives you 2 corpses, which is pretty nice value for a 3-drop, so that's something to consider as well. Next card up here is Lost Exarch, another undead card. This one has Death Rattle, spend all your mana, summon that many 2/2 zombies with Rush. Now, this is a very interesting card. We haven't seen anything spend mana on a Death Rattle, as far as I know, unless there was something in an adventure or duels that I missed. But it's a very interesting effect because it brings up this question of, do I spend all my mana on my turn now, or do I keep some mana in reserve so that this effect can go off and I get some value out of it if my opponent decides to remove my threat? We see this in other card games, like in Magic. You keep your lands untapped so you can play your instants and stuff like that. In Hearthstone, you don't really have that kind of reactivity on your turn, so there's no real reason to keep mana at the end of your turn outside of effects like this. And that's why it's so interesting to see this effect in the game, because it's a completely new direction for cards in Hearthstone, and I really like what they're doing with this, and I hope we see more cards that look into this sort of mechanic in the future. Another thing that I just wanted to say is these 2/2 zombies are the same as the 2/2 zombies from March of the Lich King. There's no art change, so they're the same token. They also have the same set icon right now on the card collection. I am not sure if that's final. They might get the mini set icon, but right now they have the main set icon. Next card on the list is Trinket Tracker. Now, this card is deceptively simple, but what it does is super powerful, especially in a class like Hunter. Drawing a 1-cost spell is not only really good for like burn decks, like the questline deck, where you can just cycle through your deck faster and draw one of your many 1-cost burn spells or whatever. It's also a tutor, which is something to consider. So in a deck like Death Rattle Hunter in Wild, for instance, you can always draw you're play dead. That seems really powerful to me and might lead to some crazy interactions in Wild that we haven't seen with any sort of consistency because there was no way to tutor these one-cost spells before very easily. We did have one minion, Arcane Fletcher, I believe. It was a 4-mana 3/3 that would draw you a one-cost... No, that was a one-cost minion, I think, whenever you cast a spell. So no, we didn't have a way to draw a one-cost spell before, other than Barrack Codobane. So this is a pretty unique effect in Hunter, and it's pretty valuable for a lot of decks. I can definitely see this going in a variety of decks. The next card on our list is a new Hunter secret, Zombies. It's a play on the old card from Saviors of Uldum, Bees for Druid, that summon 4/1/1 bees to attack a minion. The secret has a very similar effect, except when your opponent plays a minion, it casts the effect of bees on that minion. So, as you can see here, the zombies are undead beasts, so they do have synergy with both undead and beasts, which is kind of important, because this is summoning 4/1/1 tokens. So we have that 1-mana 1/2 undead that buffs the attack of your undead by 1 when they're summoned. That's a really powerful synergy with this, if it's not removed by the opponent, because you'll be killing their minion with a lot less of these zombies. Maybe you have some stick around, and then they have the buffed attack. They become a significant threat for the opponent. A similar outcome happens when you play Timberwolf. I believe that's a Wild exclusive card right now, but it is an interesting interaction with that because it also buffs all of their attack, and this results in a much more powerful version of the secret. I think people will get a real feel for just how powerful 2-attack zombies can be with the fact that Tavish is still in rotation, which means that we can see improved zombies come off of Tavish. And what that means is that we're going to see occasionally you take out like a giant with your zombies. That's insane. Or you just take out like a 1/1 and you have a 2/1 and 3 2/2s left over after taking that out. That's nuts. This card, I think, is really good. The one downside is that the secrets in the pool for Tavish right now are so strong that it seems like a waste to pick this a lot of the time. But there are definitely going to be moments where those 2/2s are super valuable and you're going to want to pick this. Another thing I think I should bring up about Zombies is that the card is essentially just a slightly better version of Snipe, so I don't really think the base card is all that good. I do think most of the value of the card is in synergies in Wild and the Tavish card. I don't know how often you'll be running this in your actual deck. There is the chance that you get to draw a bunch of cards with Starving Buzzard in Wild. That seems like it's possible, but it also seems like the Buzzard would just get removed a lot of the time before this goes off, so I don't know how actually valuable this secret is. Next card here is Faithful Companions, a new 7-mana spell for Hunter. Now, big spells in Hunter have a history of being really, really hard to utilize because Hunter does not like spending an entire turn playing a spell unless it does something insane. With this card, it is doing something insane because what it does is discovers a beast from your deck and summons it. Now, Big Beast Hunter is already a deck in Standard, running Mountain Bears and King Crush and Hydralodon. This can take those from your deck and summon them into play, and the Mana Thirst ability makes it even better. Once you reach 10 mana, this is going to summon an extra copy of that minion as well. You're going to get 2 copies of a minion, and if I'm not mistaken, because you're discovering that beast from your deck, you also get a copy in hand. I could be wrong about that, but if it's doing all of that, that's an incredibly powerful strategy. And I think this is going to be summoning a lot of King Crushes and making a lot of people really salty. Next up here we have some burn support for Priest. We have Mind Sear, a new 1-mana shadow spell for Priest that deals 2 damage to a minion, and if that minion dies, you deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Now, it has been a while since we have seen any Priest spells that do damage directly to the enemy hero outside of duels. So it's really nice to see them allowing that side of Priest's identity to be explored again, because it seemed like the team was a little hesitant to print damage for Priest ever since Velen rotated. Now, Mindseer is a nice little chip removal card that also does some damage face. It's definitely going to see play because it's just a kind of versatile removal option. And you also get some nice chip damage in as well. So it's probably going to be played in Control and Standard and other kinds of decks such as that, but also notably it is a shadow spell, so it will definitely see play in some iteration of Shadow Priest because of the 3 face damage. That seems incredibly valuable for a deck that's trying to push as much damage as possible. Speaking of pushing as much damage as possible, the next card, Rotting Necromancer, definitely helps with that. With the undead deck being pushed by the most recent patch, this is definitely going to fit right in that environment. A 4-mana 5/4, so aggressively statted, and it has Battle Cry Dredge, so you get to look at something at the bottom of your deck. We all know how Dredge works. We've seen it for months now. And if it's an undead, you deal 5 damage to the enemy hero. That's a lot of damage. That's like a fireball. And you get to dredge a card, and you get a 5/4 out of it. It's so good. It's a really, really solid for the Undead Priest deck. I do think that it's not going to be an insane card, because I don't think the Undead Priest deck is insane. But I do think it's a good card in that deck. Lastly, for Priest here, we have Cannibalize, another shadow spell for Priest, but this time focusing on healing, which is something that the Shadow Priest deck lacks currently, so it definitely seems like a consideration for them. Currently, the best option for healing in the Shadow Priest deck in Standard is Devouring Plague or Void Shard, which are kind of underwhelming when you really think about it. This would be able to heal a lot more, and you will know that its effect, destroy a minion and restore its health to all friendly characters, does not say you need to target a friendly minion. This is a removal card that also heals you. That's a very, very strong. I think this will definitely see play, at the very least in Control Priest, but I also think it has a very solid chance of going into an aggro Shadow Priest deck as a way to kind of take back the board, heal back up, and go in for a second wave. Finally, we have Thaddius. Thaddius Monstrosity is the new iteration of the card Thaddius. You may have seen at some point. Likely not, because Fugan and Stalag were very bad cards until maybe recently when they got the Undead tag. They might be somewhat playable now. But this Thaddius is definitely a much more playable version of that. Now, a lot of people are saying this seems way too slow, and I completely agree for Standard. In Standard, I don't see any way you're going to get this out except for Vandar. And that's RNG based. You might draw it first, you might not draw your Vandar, all of that stuff. Except, I guess, in Demon Hunter, where you're pretty likely to draw Vandar before this because of Abyssal Depths. But other than that, I don't think there's a good way to get it out in Standard, except in Druid, where you can just pay the 10 mana for it and then still have mana left over because you're playing Guff. However, I don't know that Druid really wants this. I feel like they already have this kind of effect with the new Barak and everything. Maybe this also fits in, so you can do that combo a little bit more flexibly. You have a little bit more redundancy in your deck. That might happen. But Currently, the deck is tier 3. I don't think this moves the needle at all, really, for that. So I don't think that's anything to worry about. What is interesting to me is in Wild, with big decks, you can cheat this guy out early, and he has Taunt, which makes it so that you get protection when you're also trying to get your mana cheating effects. That just seems really strong to me. Now, he is RNG based because he starts on odd cost, and if you're playing, like, say, Big Shaman, you summon stuff from hand with Eureka and Ancestor's Call, he's going to be on whatever he flipped to that turn, right? Because he flips in hand, I assume, as well. Which means that if you're cheating him out from deck, he's always going to make your odd cost cards cost 1, so that's predictable. But if you're cheating him out from hand, you're going to have to really consider when you want to cheat him out so that you get the most value out of his effect. It's not just a brain-dead, play big stuff card, but it does have the potential to make something very interesting happen, so I would definitely keep an eye on it. Another thing worth noting is that he is undead, which means the 9-mana Death Rattle taunt guy, he will draw him and summon a copy if you have him in deck. That is a potential synergy, so something like big undead Warlock, that might work. That might be a deck, maybe. We'll just have to see. Alright now, on to star ratings. Mistake is a 5-star card. Darkfallen Shadow is a 3-star card. Lost Exarch is a 3-star card. Trinket Tracker is a 5-star card. Zombies is a 2-star card. Faithful Companions is a 4-star card. Sear is a 4-star card. Rotting Necromancer is a 3-star card. Cannibalize is a 4-star card. And Thaddius Monstrosity, unfortunately, is a 2-star card. Well, there you go, fuggers. That wraps it up. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to subscribe to my channel, drop a like, maybe a comment, hit that notification bell so you can see all my new videos when they come out, and I'll catch you next time. Stay safe, everyone. Peace.